Hey, students of St. James Academy. My name is Matt Ramsey, and I'm a professor at Benedictine College. I chair the education department, but my field's special education. And so I've spent most of my career working with and advocating for and supporting people with disabilities. Yesterday, your teacher and my former student, Miss Inna, contacted me about creating a video for you to talk about the professional experiences that I've had in the past. And so that's what I'm here to do today. When I was 13, my dad volunteered me to work at a camp for people with disabilities. He'd gone to a Knights of Columbus meeting and he'd come home having heard about this opportunity, and so he told me I was going to go work at this camp. I wasn't necessarily excited about the idea. I didn't have any experience with people with disabilities, people who learn differently, people who engage in society differently. Um, but as luck would have it, he made me go, and that week was really one of the best weeks of my life, so much so that I spent the next 7 summers working at that camp and decided that my professional path needed to be in special education. At that point, the only real professional path I could see in helping to support people with disabilities was special education. As a student, the profession that you're exposed to most is teachers, and I knew that there were special ed teachers, and that seemed like a really good track for me to take. And so through high school and college, I engaged in a lot of experiences. The summer after I graduated from high school, I worked at a center. It was basically a drop-off daycare for school-age students with disabilities. We did academic activities as well as recreation and social activities. Um, I also, that's my phone, I'm going to turn that off really quick. Sorry about that. I also started babysitting for people with disabilities through that job. Babysitters are hard to find if you're a family who has a child with pretty severe differences and severe needs. And so I got a lot of experience working with kids. I went on to be to work in a group home. My second year of college, I had a job where I worked on Saturdays and Sundays as a care provider in a group home. Then I transferred to Benedictine and I took some time away from the working world and just focused on special education. When I got out of school, I wasn't really prepared to be a teacher. Just who I was at the time and my level of maturity, I wasn't ready to run a classroom. And so I worked at a newspaper for a bit, but then eventually I needed to make a living. And surprisingly, teaching pays better than the newspaper world. And so I went back to the classroom, first as a substitute teacher. And as a sub, I got to experience a lot of different schools and classrooms and programs, and I really got to learn what I liked. One day I got called to be a substitute teacher at a psychiatric treatment facility. And so this was a place where kids who had really severe mental health issues were enrolled in residential. They stayed on the campus. It wasn't quite like a mental hospital, but it was certainly more like a mental hospital than a school. And I knew within being in that program for about 15 minutes that that's exactly where I was called to be. And so I spent the next 5 years working in schools like that. And then for 2 years, I worked as a school principal at a private special purpose school in Kansas City to serve students with very severe emotional and mental health needs. At the end of my 7 years in the field, I came back to Benedictine College as a professor. I'm starting my 11th year, and so I came back in the fall of 2007. Since my time here at Benedictine, I've worked with lots and lots of folks who are teachers and special education teachers, and that's been a very fulfilling experience for me. But one of the other things that I'm allowed to do as a member of a college faculty, I have a lot of free time to go out and see how people with disabilities engage in the community outside of the school setting. And I've become aware that there's lots of opportunities to work with people with disabilities that don't have anything to do with being a teacher. Things like job coaches, things like the jobs I had in the past, working in group homes, working to support people. Lots to do in the autism field, in the mental health field, in the social work field. Even in medicine, I've encountered some people that work with how we engage with people with disabilities when they're sick or they need to go to the emergency room. So there's actually lots of things out there to do if that's the kind of field that you're interested in. I think special ed's a great major, even if you don't necessarily see yourself in a classroom. That major is a good way to prepare yourself to work with people with disabilities, but majors like psychology and sociology are really good too. I think other things that you can do to enhance your ability to get that kind of work is what you do with your summers. Can you find opportunities to work with people who learn differently? Can you nanny for a family that has a child with a disability? Can you work in summer programs? Can you go work at a summer camp for people with disabilities? Those are all great things to do if you're interested in a field serving others. There are some unique opportunities within the Archdiocese now. The Archdiocese has a new ministry for people with disabilities. A man named Tom Rakunas is leading up those efforts. They have respite care activities once a month where they always need volunteers. They've also created a Totus Tuus program for people with disabilities. And so if you're interested in some volunteer hours, Tom would be a great person to contact at the Archdiocese to see what kinds of opportunities are available. One of the other questions that Ms. Ennis said I should address would be some of my stories, some of my favorite things, some of my most frustrating things. I can tell you that I have a great deal of patience when it comes to working with people who are different. I don't know where that patience comes from. I'm not always a super patient person in other aspects of my life, but when it comes to being around people with disabilities, that's really a peaceful place. That's a good way for me to experience God, to experience Jesus and everyone that I encounter. There's just something really open and pure about those people, and being with them helps. And so I have tons and tons of great stories, way more than we have time for today. Some of my hardest frustrations have been facing challenges that I didn't know how to handle, things that I've had to pray about or think deeply about, but those are always opportunities for growth. If you'd like something that you can tangibly do, I have a reading that I suggest to people. It's a publication called From Brokenness to Community, and it's written by a man named Jean Vanier. It's a pair of lectures that he gave at Harvard's Divinity School that I think really sets up the understanding of why we're called to help people who are different than us. If you're interested in that, I have a copy of it in a PDF, and I'm sure Ms. Enna can get in touch with me, and I'd be happy to email it to you. So I hope I've given you some answers to questions that you might have. If you ever want to talk to me or visit about an opportunity, shoot me an email and I'll be happy to get back with you. You guys have a great day. God bless.